I am. Hello, Chuck. We are live already. Hello
Hi.
again. Aloha to Hawaii.
Aloha, Bettina.
So good to see you again.
Yeah, good to be
And
here again.
yeah, so very much. And actually, in 3 weeks, we are going to meet live, which we are going to talk about today, which is extremely exciting for all of us. It's kind of the who's who of POVs meeting. All the
Yeah,
trainers are coming, trainers from Canada, from Asia, I've heard, German-speaking trainers, of course, European trainers, and everybody being live there and being able to touch and to kiss and to hug. And for 8 days, we
right.
are with you.
And who says a workshop needs to be hard work? It could be a party.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying always. Exactly. It's celebration. Absolutely.
It's a celebration of yourself.
Yeah.
Now, how much can you celebrate yourself?
Oh, 20% comes up now.
So look in my eyes.
Mhm.
Okay. How much can you celebrate yourself now?
80.
Great. Now imagine all the other people that you know who are going to be there.
Oh,
Imagine them just looking at you.
it's an explosion. Oh, God.
Yeah,
Wow. Yeah, it's amazing.
you're our Snooky Putsy.
Wow.
And love increases your ability to receive.
Mhm, mhm.
So when you give, if you're really stuck, if you give love, if you do something that's generous, that's giving, that opens the door.
Okay. Mhm.
If you're really stuck, then you could just make a list of all the things you feel grateful for.
Mhm. Yeah.
If you're stuck in your relationship, think of all the things you feel grateful for. I had a woman 32 years ago, and she was in a workshop, and we were in Hawaii,
Mhm.
and she was getting ready to divorce her husband,
Oh.
and he wasn't there at the workshop.
Mhm.
She didn't invite him, and I just asked her, tell me one thing you feel grateful to him about. She said, well, he's a good provider. He's a hard worker. He's always, provided for the family in a really positive way. And just that one thought, she went on, and that just kept expanding. And when she went home, they didn't get a divorce. They had a new honeymoon. And it was built on gratitude, because gratitude opens the door to love. And typically in a relationship, you have any number of things to be grateful for.
Mhm.
So those are things that get you unstuck. Forgiveness gets you unstuck, though that's usually the last thing that people will go to, but only if I have to.
Yeah.
Only if it's life or death, because they're wrong.
It's true.
But the nature of the mind, now this goes right into the unconscious. The nature of the mind is what you see is what you believe about yourself,
Yeah. Mhm.
which is why forgiveness is so important, because it's always showing you the things you judged in yourself and pinned on somebody else.
Mhm.
We have that game, in usually a birthday game in the States, called Pin the Tail on the Donkey.
What about
They put
it?
the blindfold on, spin you around, and they have this picture of a donkey, and you have this little tail with a pin on it. And I remember when I was 8 years old and went to my best friend's birthday party, and he lived right next door. And the moms were all there doing setting up the games and stuff like that to keep all us kids from going wild. Um, he was the birthday boy, so he was the first one, and they spun him around so many times, that he had the blindfold on and the pin. He was it was like he was drunk. And there was this mom who bent over to pick something up just as he went to and it wasn't pretty. But sometimes late at night I still laugh about that. So
nice picture. I regard it.
so people so rarely celebrate themselves. I mean, sometimes people exaggerate themselves, but that's just kind of offensive to the people around. But if you celebrated yourself, everybody could celebrate. Everybody could feel what's worth celebrating.
Yeah.
So to be able to do that, there's a couple of things, but to be able to do that, the number one thing is to get rid of the guilt.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Go
ahead.
My number one theme, actually, or everybody's theme, not the guilt.
Yeah. And what I found psychologically, because, when you've worked with hundreds of thousands of people, over 53 years, you run into a lot of people, and I mean, hundreds of thousands. And I have yet to find something where guilt is true. I wrote a whole book called There Are No, Healing Guilt. There are no bad guys, not even you. Because underneath our blame or grievance or hatred, there's our guilt.
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell you with authority, and I was such a guilt monger as a kid. I mean, by 7, I thought I was going to hell. It's like I found that there's no guilt is true. Now, it's true that we all feel it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's true that as soon as you feel guilt, you punish yourself, or you keep yourself in scarcity. You wouldn't be keeping yourself in scarcity in any area. And health, it's all, as soon as the guilt goes, the health comes back.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the ego is just a master at hiding guilt, of blaming ourselves for things. Back in the 70s, by about 1975, I was working with issues through this intuitive method back in the womb. And these are like major soul patterns. They're not just, and they pattern our whole life. And anything, see, in the womb, we're psychic sponges. So anything going on around us that's painful, we blame ourselves for it. We may be angry and have all that stuff, but that's the cover for our own guilt. And so then we make up childhood ways to make things better, like sacrificing ourselves, throwing ourselves under the bus, crucifying ourselves. And I ask people a lot, how many times have you crucified yourself?
20,000.
Yeah. So the toughest thing about the self-crucifixion is getting that last nail in, get the hammer in your mouth and try to get that last nail in. And it keeps you from getting nailed in fun ways. So it's like, and there's all this self-punishment, but we'll go into that a little bit deeper, because there's things going on in everyday life that keep us from, celebrating ourselves. Because, okay, now let's go spiritually. Spiritually, heaven is celebrating us. Heaven created us, God created us in his image, which means innocence, love, power, happiness, joy, rapture, all those good things. But we had a better idea, and we wanted to do it our way. And that's our authority conflict. And besides guilt, it's one of the roots of all problems. We think we're right. You can't have a problem without thinking you're right. So, it's like the old Course in Miracles question. Do you want to be right or happy?
Happy, of course.
Yeah. And again, you can do that instantly. You can even put aside that idea about guilt and punishment and blame by just loving somebody or helping someone. It opens up your heart. It opens up that compassion in you, and it creates flow. Just like gratitude creates flow. So this guilt thing. So let's imagine, Betty, that you took all of your guilt and you took it up to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court is run by the Holy Spirit. And the ego is the prosecuting attorney, telling you all the ways that you were bad, evil, and nasty. Over on the other side, and it tells you it's all your fault. And the thing about making it all your fault is you take no responsibility. You make yourself the center of attention. Yeah, it's all me. I'm past the guilt, please. Guilt's over there. So you become a guilt monger. You become a collector of guilt, which I used to do before I, worked through the whole thing. I mean, I was, as I said, 7 years old. I knew I was going to hell. Anyhow, guess what? Jesus and Mary are in your corner. Kuan Yin and Buddha are in your corner. But your ego is saying, you're a bad girl. You're a naughty girl. You're a dirty girl. Now, I personally like dirty girls, but just saying, it's like if you can get the joke of this. And so it's like, does the Holy Spirit condemn you?
No.
All the Holy Spirit sees is how you were created.
Yeah. As
light, as love. And when we get back to that awareness, all the problems clear up immediately. A Course in Miracles says, if you get back to that point, I mean, really realize that you become one of the saviors of the earth, because your mind uplifts all minds. And this part of us, that voice that's always blaming us and, telling us we're not good enough, that comes from when we separate from others. So the antidote to that is all the things where you join with someone, where you love someone, where you bless someone, when you connect with someone, when you bond with someone, when you forgive someone. All of these things bring us together. And the thing is, it's like, can you think of all the people you've judged in the world?
Yeah.
Where that comes from psychologically is places where you feel guilty. If you felt innocent, you would just say, oh, it's a call for help. That poor baby, they need something. Let me go give it to them.
Yeah.
But when you're hating yourself, when you're attacking yourself, you want them to be punished. So it's getting over that. I mean, and self-attack is the biggest problem in the world. If there was no self-attack, everybody be innocent. So, one of the things that brings us down in our consciousness is complaining. And complaining attacks our self-confidence. It's I can't handle this. All I can do is complain. I can't make this better.
Yeah.
Of course, if you decide to make it better, then the ego tries to step in and gives you an idea that absolutely won't work. Like sacrifice, for instance. You give, but you don't receive. So it leads to deadness and burnout and things like that.
Mhm.
Now, by the way, guilt, I've been recently working with some people with catastrophic illness, and the guilt goes back. It goes back ancestrally, and it goes back into past lives or the deep unconscious, or the stories and metaphors we tell ourselves about our unfolding.
Okay. Mhm.
Okay. And the ego, you want to keep the best picture of yourself. And so we collude with our ego, which is the principle of this is me and I'm the best and you're the worst. Or sometimes I could be I'm the worst and you're the best. But it doesn't want equality where there would be connection and flow.
Mhm.
So the ego is an illusion. And if you fight against it, you just reinforce it. It's just unlearning, basically. We have so much to unlearn. What I have found after 53 years of this work is this. This is my best shot at it, that the whole world is this big video game.
Mhm.
And it's a video game for our soul. Once I was in Taiwan and I asked everybody, I said, okay, who here likes to gamble? And, about half the room, raised their hand. I go, come on. I'm in a Chinese community. How many of you like to gamble? All the hands went up, and it was a Buddhist nun. And I went over to her and I said, are you kidding me? You're the biggest gambler in the whole room. You have bet this whole life, you put this whole life on the line that you're going to make it in this lifetime, that you're going to awaken in this lifetime. You bet it all. And she was both laughing and crying at the same time because she recognized what a gambler she was. Now, heaven is on our side. That's the good news, because it's on the side of truth, because it's true. So it's since the 70s, I've been working on this idea of how people evolve and the traps that stop them at each stage.
Mhm.
And I call it steps to oneness. And so, you go through dependency where we get all our heartbreaks, as a child and in relationships. And then we go independent, no more Ms. Nice Guy. And I'm going to do it my way. And you telling me what to do, know who you're talking to. And then to move into partnership, it's surrendering those walls, those laws that you put up so that you could be open to connection with your partner. And it's a lifetime's work, because you'll always find where you're opposite or different than your partner. And as you bring those opposites together, and there's some sweet, easy ways to do that. Because if you're in conflict with someone, you're in conflict with yourself.
Mhm.
Now, Betty, you haven't ever been in conflict with yourself recently, have you?
No, very much.
Mm, mm. So how big was the fight?
1,000.
So imagine there's two parts of your mind and each one wants to be right. When we're having a fight with anyone, what's happening on the inside subconsciously is that we're in a fight with ourselves. But by focusing the fight on the outside,
Mhm.
we don't have to feel all the fear and the guilt and the struggle.
Mhm.
Okay. So there's 1,000 bits where two parts of your mind are, duking it out.
Boxing.
So now, do you want to do this psychologically or spiritually?
Spiritually.
Which is really quick. That's the thing. As I work with people, I'm going through so many healings and unlearnings and changes myself. I came to see that, candy is dandy, but liquor is quicker.
Yeah.
And spirit, changes things much easier and quicker. Okay, so here you are in conflict, and as soon as two parts of your mind are in conflict, you're in fear.
Yeah. Mhm.
And you can't go forward
Mhm.
because side wants to win, and if the other side starts to winning, the other side pulls it back. So let's ask Mother Mary. Do you like Mother Mary?
Yes,
Yes.
very much.
He likes you too. If you want it to be a little spicier, you can ask Mary Magdalene. Okay, so she's reached oneness. They've all reached oneness.
Mhm.
So you can ask someone who has reached oneness, like Mother Mary or Jesus or anybody, Buddha, and ask him to come into your mind in those 1,000 places and bring her oneness. Because all she sees is oneness. Okay, she can operate in this world of illusion and duality and separation because she's been here. But she can bring that oneness. So those two sides just melt into wholeness. They find the place beyond the differences where there's a coming together. And when that happens, how does that feel inside?
Just very good and relaxed.
Yeah.
It's just like he's inside of me.
That's an integration.
Mhm.
That's a new integrity. That's a new ability to receive.
Yes.
Yes,
Thank you.
exactly. I mean, the ego has 1,000 tricks about keeping you from receiving.
Mhm.
And none of them are true, but some of them are very good, in terms of tricks. And it's been my path to how to unlearn these things, mostly so I could do it with myself first. I was always the hardest client I ever worked with. Yeah.
Hard to believe.
And once I got through it myself, then everybody else was easy. So I remember, when I finally got through this feeling of being unwanted. And, I had good evidence for it. I heard my mother screaming that she never wanted me, in a fight with my father. As a 9-year-old, my world collapsed. But once I realized that was just a big illusion, and it was my mother's call for help. And to put it in a certain reference, she didn't want me so close to my older sister. But still, what a 9-year-old hears is like, I was crushed. So I had to dig my way out of that. But when I did, it's like I've heard like women who said, my mother tried to abort me by jumping off chairs, by sticking darning needles up her vagina, by drinking lye. And I said, oh, okay. So you thought she didn't want you. She said, yeah, my mom and I have been fighting since before I was born. My labor was 4 days.
Oh my God.
She said, we would have fights that would be so loud that we would be at one end of the village shouting at each other, and the village priest would come running from the other end of the village across to try to break us up. And this is all part of my learning to realize that all pain is a mistake. If it's not love and happiness, it's a mistake, which means it can be corrected. Heaven's plan is that nothing is incorrectible. Anyhow, it was a workshop in Tokyo, actually in the 5-Lake district outside of Tokyo in 1987, and I made a bet with her. As she started to tell me all this, I said, I bet in 10 minutes that I can change your mind. And I mean, that's kind of ballsy to say, but that was the inspiration. And I follow the guidance, hasn't led me wrong. And so the key piece of it was, first of all, I got her to realize that it wasn't personal. She was in a war zone. And her father had been killed like 3 months before. And her mother thought, neither of us will survive. So I have to do something. So she had personalized all that and taken that to heart. And and she was in the war zone. But anyhow, this big fight, this big conflict with her mother, I said, imagine your mother was happy, abundant, just in a place of peace, inwardly, outwardly. I said, how does she feel about this baby? She said, oh, she wants this baby.
Oh.
I said, wow, that's a new thought, isn't it? I said, now, let's imagine that this is a football game. What's your score? What's your mother's score? She went, I have 99. My mother has 1.
Oh.
And she started laughing. Realized that her whole life she was in this huge competition to make her mother wrong. So anyhow, she was celebrating at the end of that. And we went back to Tokyo on that Sunday night. It was like a I don't know how many days training it was. I think it was a 17-day training. I mean, imagine how deep you go in 17 days.
Yeah.
So, and she went back there. We went back there, and we were getting together again on the Tuesday evening. And on Tuesday evening, just having people share what went on since the workshop. And she said, you won't believe it. My mother has never called me in my life. And she called me when I got back from the workshop. She called me from Europe to Tokyo. And for the first time in my life and in her life, she said she loved me. As the illusions fall away, the truth comes out. And the truth is we were made in oneness. So the truth is that we're actually connected with each other. We're bonded with each other. We're one with each other. So every time you help someone, you help yourself. Every time you forgive someone, you forgive yourself. So we live in a world of duality. It's all opposites, good and evil, love and fear, love and hate. There's all these opposites in the world. And actually, only love is true. The rest is the illusion. The fear is the illusion, the hate, but we feel it, so we live like that.
Yeah.
But it's not the truth. So how to get back to oneness. So that was the study I've been doing since the mid-70s. Like, what are the steps that people go through as individuals? What are the steps that couples go through? What are all the traps and the pitfalls? And if I hear someone talk for about 10 minutes, I know what stage they're at and what lessons they're working with, and in general, what the answers are, and then specifically what the answers are. But it's a big video game, because as far as I can tell, we get happier, we get more peaceful, we get more confident. And then we, and things from the past, pain from the past, guilt from the past comes to the surface, and it pretends this is a current problem. But actually, I found this back in the 70s, because I'd be working with someone with any problem, and we'd end up talking about something in their past, typically in childhood. But then it started going beyond childhood to issues in the womb. I remember in 1976, the first time using this intuitive method, the guy said, oh, this heartbreak pattern comes from when I was in my conception. My mother was feeling this. And again, if we're psychic sponges, anything going on with grandparents or parents or anybody close, we take it in as if it's ours personally. And that doesn't help, actually. That's a level of fusion and things like that. Anyhow, it's like when we got through that lesson about him, just feeling rejected, because it wasn't even his rejection. It was his mother's rejection. Now, at an unconscious level, everything's a mirror, but still, we went back there and we healed that place where his mother felt rejected. I mean, see, it's like, how do you know this stuff works in the womb, conception? This people make this up, don't they? But the proof of the pudding is in the tasting. That weekend, he got a girlfriend for the first time in his life. It was like, his thought about himself changed. And this untrue loyalty toward his mother, like, that was balanced. And she was healed at that point also.
Wow.
So anyhow, the proof of the puddings is in the tasting. It's like, does it work? If it doesn't work, there's something else to learn. There's something else to heal. So, but sometimes if you get the right issue, if you get the right key, people get better right away. I've seen people get better from cancers in like one workshop. I remember back during the harmonic convergence back there in the 80s, I guess it was. And this one guy, and this was in Japan, he came to the workshop and he had stomach cancer and he was throwing up every single day. And by the 8th day, he was healed. He no longer had cancer. So it's like, it's knowing that we put limits on ourselves, and we're all trying to get to a higher stage in the video game, the game of life, and how to win it. But to win it means transcending it. So now this gets real spiritual. It's like you raise yourself in consciousness, in power, in love, in happiness, and you've dealt with all these unconscious things, but then at some point you awaken and you realize, like the Buddha said, it's all a dream. Or it's all a video game, as I say.
I like that.
How to get a really high score, because whatever consciousness you reach, when you get to, and then you've used up this body, your time is up. We're all doing time here, but the time, and you leave this body, but then you come back in at the same stage of consciousness you were when you left. And so you'll find the books or the people or the situation or the awareness in your family that naturally leads to you moving forward. And as A Course in Miracles says, when you're healed, you're not healed alone.
Yeah.
We're all part of the tapestry. We're all part of the connection. And there's some, basically, working with people, some of the most angelic spiritual people, and we've done it all. There was one mystic who got to see all of his lifetimes. They paraded past him. He was men, he was women, sometimes he was aliens, to learn specific lessons. And when you learn the lesson, basically the gift appears. And if you embrace the gift, the problem dissolves. But the ego doesn't want us to find that, because it wants to stay in power. And it goes back to, the last 10 years have been working on the most ancient patterns of fractures, which are so utterly painful. So when something big comes up, what I have found, and I've found this for decades now, is that our soul set this up before this life to learn a certain lesson. So naturally, when any big problem comes up, any big failure, any big illness, we attack ourselves. Now, you can't have an illness without having self-attack and having some kind of guilt. But if you realize this isn't true, let me learn the lesson here. And the thing is, there's a line in A Course in Miracles that says, never attempt to overlook your guilt and heal yourself before you ask the Holy Spirit's help. That is his function. And that's a part of our own mind, because he's in oneness, so he's in us. Like when Jesus became Christ, he reached awareness of oneness with God, oneness with us. So he's in us. So Mother Mary's in you. Mary Magdalene's in you. Buddha's in you. Yeah. I always thought of myself more as a Budapest, but anyhow, I always said to people, when I start teaching in China, and I've been there about 40 sometimes now, and I said, I'm Buddha's little brother, because I had this heroic build like Buddha, And so, and everybody would laugh and things like this. And then I found out that in Chinese, little brother is Didi, the word Didi, and it also means penis. So I was going, I'm Buddha's Didi. And they would, anyhow, I got the joke. They got the joke.
Yeah.
The thing is, it's like heaven's not a sourpuss. I mean, Martin Luther said that. He said the devil is a sourpuss. It's like accounts of mystics who have known Jesus 2,000 years ago. They go, he had this incredible sense of humor. He didn't take it seriously.
Yeah.
And if you can get humor back in your life, and that's why I like to, bring humor into my workshops. It just makes, as Mary Poppins said, a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down. The medicine.
Yeah, true.
And it's like, the thing is like, if you realize you were totally innocent, you'd be joyful and you'd be infectious.
Yeah.
You'd be infectious with love and fun and want to help people get out of their prisons, to get out of your more hidden prisons. That's what life is about enjoyment, is about joining, is about finding each other. Oh, you're my long lost sister. Oh, you're my long lost mom. Oh, you're my long lost wife. Oh, you're my long lost, brother. You're my long lost father. It's like we played all these different roles. And especially when there's a karmic situation, and learning how to, heal the karma. So it's just all abundance and peace and love. And our parent, what I found is our parents represent, I've said this before, represents so many past lives that we haven't forgiven ourselves for. So they come back in as parents. So it's learning to forgive ourselves by forgiving others. The Hawaiian healing method, Ho'oponopono, and there's different forms of it. But the first form I learned was when you look at someone or something and go, I'm sorry. Sorry, I projected on you. I pinned on you my unfinished business, my dirty laundry. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you.
Mm.
And it's just, and whatever my ancestors did to your ancestors, yeah, we've done it all. And so if we realize, yeah, I certainly made mistakes, but we can correct mistakes. Guilt says, no, no. You say, you can't correct this. You are a sinner and you should be in hell. So every choice actually is a choice between heaven, which is some form of joining, and hell, which is some form of separation.
Yeah.
You know, Sartre's play about hell, like these 4 people in hell, and each one needed something from somebody else, but who needed something from somebody else? And they were ignoring the person who needed something from them, and they were trying to get, you know, the love or whatever it was, the attention from this other person. So it's like hell is where you feel completely isolated. But that's what hell is. It's getting people past this belief in hell. I was working with someone with cancer recently, and I took them down to the hell worlds. 10 years ago, I was working with someone who came to visit, who said, and he said, I should be dead today. My doctor said, this is the day I would die. I have stage 4 cancer. And so, but somehow I heard your name. I didn't know you, but I heard your name, and I had this strong impulse. This is a guy who could help me. So, and my intuition was to take him down to the hell worlds. And he had like 100 selves down in the hell worlds. But we had gone down with like Mother Mary and Jesus, and they're angels. And they collected all of them and purified them and brought them back into wholeness inside him. So, and then we brought him back into his everyday mind. But the next week he called me and said, doctor said no sign of cancer, all gone. And it was just like one of those miraculous things. It's like, you know, if you get the right key, it could happen right away. And obviously heaven was behind him getting it immediately. And learning, you know, that, you know, you deserve it all. That's how heaven created you. When he, I mean, it's like, yesterday was Father's Day here in the US. It's like you want to give your children everything. You and the only way you can't give them everything is when you don't have it yourself. Okay, so here's one more thought. It's about complaining. Now, about 8 years ago, you know, I was really working because people complaining about their partner and complaining about their parents and things like this. And as I began to explore it time and time again, what I found was this strange combination about complaining, that underneath the complaining, the person who didn't give it to him, whether it was a parent, because if you're a parent, you know, you want to give your kids everything. So if you're not giving it to them, you typically attack yourself because you want to give them everything.
Of course. Yeah.
Okay. So it's like what I found, like, okay, my husband is not giving me this, so I'm going to get rid of him. Well, the thing is, it's like you're expecting him to give you the gift that you're the one that has the gift buried inside. So what I found is that the biggest complainers, unbeknownst to themselves, were being very stingy. And they had the gift inside and they'd hidden it from themselves, but they could quickly recognize that they had the gift. And as they shared it, guess what? You have the gift then. And that opens the door to also receive the gift. And sometimes you need to educate husbands or wives or things like that by giving them the gift, and then they begin to learn about the gift, and then they get better. So that's the truth. It's like, and they're gifted. And you think, well, she was my mother. She was supposed to give it to me.
Yeah.
And that's one of the key dynamics about breast cancer. You're blaming your parents for not giving you some gift, like left breast issue is mother. She didn't give it to me. Well, you have the gift. You have the nurturing, you have the compassion. And right breast is about father. And it's just blessing the world. So, and consciousness keeps growing. So you get past certain lessons. You know, the biggest lesson in relationships, if you survive the fight stage, is you come to the dead zone. You know, and I did a lot of research before I finally had enough confidence to get through the dead zone. I did that with my wife. I couldn't get through it with any of my other relationships. But then, you know, research, learn the way, find what works. And so to know, is there life after commitment?
Yeah, I remember that.
You know, in 1984, I gave a workshop. Is there life after commitment? 4 people showed up because they knew the answer. No, there's no life after commitment. You know, it's like the old joke. I have a lot of my friends who are practicing celibacy. Unfortunately, most of them are married.
So for this workshop, there are just few spots left actually now in 3 weeks. Everybody wants to be celebrated and to celebrate.
Exactly. To know the truth about yourself.
Yeah.
So, Betty, do you want to help?
Yes.
And A Course in Miracles says, if you want to help, you become a teacher of God.
Yeah.
Right? Now, that's pretty cool. What does a teacher of God deserve? What are the benefits, the perks?
Feel God every day.
Well, it's like blessings,
Yeah.
gifts, praise. And all of that comes into your life as you realize, oh, yeah, I do deserve this. Basically, in 1984, I made up this ancient saying, and I made up many ancient sayings. I really enjoy making up ancient sayings, but I made up this ancient saying, and it was, when the receiver is ready, the giver appears.
Yeah.
Now, let's say you want a man in your life, a true partner,
Yes.
to go all the way in this life to oneness or toward oneness, at least. So, but do you feel confident that you wouldn't crash the relationship? Not yet.
I'm a crusher. I'm a relationship crusher.
Yeah. Does heaven have confidence in you?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Can you trust heaven?
Yeah.
But heaven seems too far away, doesn't
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But you know me, I'm your friend. I have confidence in you. And if you have your little bit of confidence and my big bit of confidence in you. And then there's heaven's, everlasting confidence in you, which I'll receive for you. Then how's that feel?
Super strong, very like a foundation. Yeah.
And every true relationship still has all its lessons to go through.
Yeah.
Having a true partner having true love doesn't mean you're not going to have issues. That's what the lesson's all about, that you have enough love that whatever comes up with either of you, because anything that comes up with either of you is both of yours. And you're both learning that lesson. And so to just be in service to your partner, to just love them and to receive their love, their support.
Yeah. Yippee!
So can you trust my confidence in you?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Yeah. So all I'd say is, what are you waiting for?
Okay, goodbye.
Exactly. It's like people sometimes come to workshops to find a partner. Like that's the block, and they get their true partner and they go, see you around. Come up.
Really, never know. See you again.
And then they come back later when they get out of the honeymoon stage. They get into the lesson stage that begins with differences and power struggles and things like that. There are many stages, but you could learn them all. Be a willing learner. Just
I will tell you in 3 weeks.
so, but you haven't had many complaints about men, have you?
Yeah.
Not many grievances about men, have you?
Unfortunately, yes.
You haven't ever felt used by men, have you? When you have a big thing about feeling used by men,
Yeah, oh no.
it's because you've used men to hold yourself back as your best excuse. And recently I've been having fun because, like, let's say people have issues with women or with men or something like this, and I take them back to a whole string of their past lives, and they see that all of their complaints about men were how they used to act as men when they were a man. And that's why they can't forgive, because they haven't forgiven themselves. It's very cute, and they get it. And it's funny. Okay, so that's part of it. And that's just part of the lesson. But so Betty,
Yes.
you had these grievances toward men. And what I found is this is a classic thing, is you have all of that because what you've come to do in this life, your purpose, your function, or at least part of it, is to redeem men. But if men are just such buggas, and it's all karmic, how men have treated you in this life is how you've acted toward women in past lives. So underneath all of that drama, there are these world life-changing gifts. There's these gifts where you save men. You redeem them.
That feels sweet.
Yeah. And, in a relationship, we save each other so many times. Each partner. What was that movie, 20 years ago or so, Pretty Woman? And at the end, the guy in his limousine, he's standing in the sunroof and he has his umbrella up in the air, like a white knight charging in, and And he goes up the fire escape and he goes, what do you do? And your knight comes and just comes to save you. She goes, save him right back. Of course. Of course. That's what we do.
Sweet.
I don't know if I've said this before, and it's a good place to end. When I worked with the Marines for so many years, it's like the highest compliment they would give you is they would say, I would want you in my foxhole.
Yeah.
Because in a foxhole, you're back to back.
Yeah.
So that, and what they're saying to you is nobody would get to my back unless you're not alive anymore. No one could touch me if you're still breathing. That was their highest compliment. I'd want you in my foxhole. And basically, that's what a relationship is meant to be. Because, you know, when you get into partnership, you start pulling up these unconscious issues and shadow figures and things like this. And to have someone covering your back. Because when you have that kind of attitude, then you get your front covered too. And that's all, that'll, just, so.
Oh, wow. Thank you, Chuck. This was like always amazing.
That's good. And
yeah.
And now we'll get to see each other in person and all of our other friends. And it's
exactly. Just
all
very
of
few.
our new friends.
Yeah,
And
yes. So many trainers, so many old and new friends.
yeah.
Exactly. And there's just, as I heard, very few, I think 5 spots or so are left. So anybody who feels called.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't know that.
A limited place, yeah. So
wow. Cool.
Forward. Thank you so much, Chuck, for this time.
No, you're so welcome. It's so
And
always a pleasure.
see you in 3 weeks. Yippee.
See you in 3 weeks.
Have a good trip to Europe.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. My wife is coming with me. So we're
yeah, exactly. She put it in she's giving a download on at workshop, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, which is a download of grace or gifts or something like that. But she'll figure it out, you know.
Being a big celebration.
Yeah. So
thank you.
Okay.
Love you, love to Lenti. See you soon.
I will pass it on. Okay.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.